You are not poor because the world hates you. You are poor because your habits still make you easy to price, easy to distract, and easy to replace. That is the truth a man does not want to hear, because it removes the comfort of blaming only the world. Yes, the world is unequal. Some men are born closer to power. Connections matter. Class matters. Timing matters. Money matters. The name attached to your blood can open doors another man has to bleed just to knock on. Machiavelli would not deny this. He would begin there. But then he would ask the question most men avoid. If reality is unequal, why are you still behaving like discipline is optional? If your attention can be rented by noise, your emotions moved by provocation, your time consumed by comfort, and your standards negotiated by weakness, the market does not need to hate you. It only needs to price the evidence you have given it. This is not about motivation. Motivation is too soft. Motivation comes and goes like weather. This is about command. This is about the hidden structure that decides whether a man becomes expensive or stays cheap before money ever enters the room. Because poverty does not begin in the bank account. The bank account is often only the report. The deeper poverty begins earlier. It begins when a man treats his time like it has no value. It begins when he gives his attention to everything except his own rise. It begins when his word means nothing to himself. It begins when his body cannot carry pressure. It begins when his standards can be lowered by boredom, loneliness, desire, or mood. A man can be broke and still be dangerous. But a man without discipline is not dangerous. He is available. Available to distraction, available to manipulation, available to cheap pleasure, available to low offers, available to people who need him weak enough to accept less. That is why this conversation matters. Not because discipline makes life fair. It does not. Discipline does not erase inequality. Discipline does not magically remove class, timing, or the advantages of other men. But without discipline, even the small opportunities that reach you will pass through your hands without becoming power. Machiavelli understood one thing modern men keep trying to escape. Power belongs to the man who can see reality without needing it to comfort him. He did not write from a motivational stage. He wrote from a world of unstable republics, ambitious princes, foreign armies, betrayal, fear, reputation, and violent reversals of fortune. Human tools change. Human nature changes slowly. Men still chase status. Men still obey fear. Men still judge appearances. Men still exploit weakness. Men still mistake comfort for safety. Men still believe they deserve reward before they have built force. In The Prince, Machiavelli writes, "Many have imagined republics and principalities which have never been seen or known to exist in reality." Then he says, "For how we live is so far removed from how we ought to live. That is the blade." If you build your life on how things should be, you will be defeated by people who understand how things are. And how things are is simple. The world does not pay you for your hidden potential. It does not reward you because you are misunderstood. It does not owe you status because your pain was real. It watches your behavior. It measures your proof. It sees whether you can be trusted with pressure, time, attention, responsibility, and value. Then it prices you. A distracted man is cheap. A reactive man is cheap. A man without proof is cheap. A man who cannot keep his word to himself is cheap. A man who sells potential instead of evidence is cheap. This is not morality, this is power. Before we go deeper, look at pressure, because pressure reveals ownership. Angela Duckworth's research on grit became known partly through West Point, where cadets entered a brutal summer training period called Beast Barracks. This environment was designed to expose something that cannot be proven by talk. Who continues when comfort is removed? Who still moves when the body is tired, The mind is pressured, and the fantasy of being strong meets the reality of endurance. The lesson was not that grit explains everything. Background matters. Skill matters. Resources matter. But pressure still revealed a pattern. Ability without persistence collapses. Talent without sustained effort becomes decoration. The man who looks strong on paper may still break when the environment stops applauding him. Now look at James Dyson. Wired reported that Dyson spent 5 years developing more than 5,000 prototypes of his first bagless vacuum. 5 years, more than 5,000 attempts. Not one emotional burst, not one motivational weekend. Repeated output under frustration, iteration after iteration, until proof existed in the real world. First with the G-Force vacuum in Japan, then later through his own models. Pressure, failure, repetition, proof. That is the difference between a man who wants belief and a man who builds evidence. Machiavelli wrote in The Art of War, "Discipline in war counts more than fury. Fury is emotion. Discipline is structure." And the unsupported man often has too much fury and too little structure. He is angry that no one believes in him, but he has not built anything belief can attach to. He is tired of being ignored, but his proof is still invisible. He says he wants freedom, but the first hour of his day belongs to strangers on a screen. He says he wants respect, but his schedule is still negotiable. He says he wants wealth, but his attention still begs for stimulation. So the first law is this: poverty begins before the bank account. Poor is not only financial. Poor is how a man treats his time before opportunity appears. Poor is how he treats his attention before the market sees him. Poor is how he treats his word before anyone trusts him. Poor is how he treats his body before pressure arrives. Poor is how he treats his standards when nobody is watching. Machiavelli writes in Discourses on Livy, "Men never behave well unless compelled, and whenever they are free to act as they please and are under no restraint, everything falls at once into confusion and disorder." He was speaking politically, but the principle cuts into the individual man. Where there is no restraint, disorder expands. A state without institutions decays. An army without discipline collapses. A man without internal law becomes available to impulse. Your life does not stay neutral when you fail to govern it. It drifts downward. Your attention gets taken, your standards get negotiated, your time gets consumed, your body gets softened, your emotions get manipulated, your money gets spent, your ambitions get delayed. Then you call the result bad luck. Some of it may be bad luck. Do not be childish. The world is not equal. But much of what men call bad luck is ungoverned territory. And Machiavelli's world does not reward ungoverned territory, it gets occupied. If you do not rule your attention, platforms rule it. If you do not rule your time, urgency rules it. If you do not rule your emotions, provocation rules them. If you do not rule your money, impulse rules it. If you do not rule your standards, the lowest environment around you will set them. That is why a bank account is often the delayed report of a deeper government or a deeper disorder. A man who cannot govern himself will be priced by systems that can. If you are the kind of man who is done confusing motion with progress, stop pretending another free piece of content will save you. You already know you need discipline, but your real problem is that your environment still rewards the weak version of you. If you keep consuming insight without building structure, you will become intelligent enough to explain your failure and still too undisciplined to escape it. Inside Patreon, you get the unfiltered studies, deeper breakdowns, and private frameworks designed to turn attention, discipline, proof, and leverage into a working system. This is not for men looking for comfort. It is for men who are ready to be governed by a higher standard before the world forces a lower one on them. The decision is yours. Now understand the second law. Discipline makes a man expensive. Not discipline as a slogan, not discipline as a personality costume, not discipline as posting a morning routine while the rest of your life remains weak. Discipline as scarcity. A distracted man is cheap because his attention can be bought by noise. He is cheap because his output is inconsistent. He is cheap because his emotional state decides his performance. He is cheap because he needs constant encouragement. He is cheap because if the market ignores him for 1 week, he stops. A disciplined man becomes expensive because he becomes rare. He can focus when others scatter. He can produce when others complain. He can delay reaction when others expose themselves emotionally. He can survive boredom when others need stimulation. He can repeat when others need applause. He can build proof when no one is watching. In The Art of War, Machiavelli says, without doubt, ferocious and disordered men are much weaker than timid and ordered ones. For order chases fear from men, and disorder lessens ferocity. That is one of the most useful Machiavellian truths for the unsupported man. Ferocity is not enough. Hunger is not enough. Anger is not enough. Being underestimated is not enough. If you are disordered, your intensity leaks. Order makes even fear manageable. Disorder makes even courage weak. Look at your own life without lying. When your day has no structure, every impulse becomes a vote. When your phone owns the morning, your attention is already conquered. When your body is neglected, your energy becomes unreliable. When your sleep is chaotic, your judgment weakens. When your work block is not protected, your future receives whatever time remains after distraction has eaten. Then you say, I want freedom. But your schedule says, I want comfort. You say, I want wealth. But your attention says, I want stimulation. You say, I want respect. But your standards say, I can be moved by any mood. Machiavelli also writes in The Prince, the chief foundations of all states are good laws and good arms. Again, he speaks of states. But a man also needs foundations. His laws are his standards. His arms are his skills. Without laws, he becomes chaotic. Without arms, he becomes dependent. Modern men often want wealth without laws and influence without arms. They want the market to reward them while their private life is undisciplined. They want a better price without becoming a better position. That is fantasy. Discipline makes you expensive because it makes you less available to common manipulation. Cheap dopamine cannot buy you easily. Insults cannot move you easily. Boredom cannot defeat you quickly. Social pressure cannot redirect you cheaply. A disciplined man costs more to control. And that is the first form of wealth an unsupported man can build without permission. Discipline is the first form of scarcity. But discipline alone does not get paid. The market does not buy your inner transformation. It buys visible value. It buys what can be trusted, inspected, measured, used, and respected. So the next question becomes colder. If discipline makes you scarce, what makes your value visible? Proof. Because potential is invisible. And invisible value is almost the same as no value in the market. This is where many unsupported men become emotional. They say, no one believes in me. They say, my family doubts me. They say, my friends do not understand me. They say, society ignores men like me. Maybe they do. But Machiavelli would ask a harder question. What have you built that belief can attach to? The world is not morally obligated to believe in visible power. People judge what they can see. They judge the surface because they do not have access to your private intentions. They judge your evidence because your internal potential is not useful to them yet. Machiavelli writes in The Prince, Men in general judge more by the eye than by the hand. Do not complain about this. Use it. If men judge by the eye, make your proof visible. Do not fake it. Do not invent status. Do not pretend to have results you have not earned. That is not strategy. That is fraud, and fraud eventually becomes weakness with a costume. Build visible evidence. Show the skill. Show the body of work. Show the portfolio. Show the case study. Show the before and after. Show the product. Show the offer. Show the result. Show the daily output. Show the discipline made physical, measurable, undeniable. Potential asks to be believed. Proof lowers the risk of trust. A man with potential but no proof is asking the world to gamble on his self-image. A man with proof gives the world something harder to ignore. This is why so many men stay frustrated. They are not lazy in fantasy. They are not weak in intention. In their own minds, they are chosen, capable, dangerous, and misunderstood. But the market cannot inspect your imagination. It can only inspect your output. You can tell people you are disciplined, but if there is no body of work, no skill sharpened, no visible result, no measurable improvement, then discipline is still private. And private discipline has not yet become market power. Machiavelli writes in The Prince, "All armed prophets have conquered, and the unarmed ones have been destroyed." For this video, do not distort the meaning. I am not speaking about violence, I am speaking about force behind vision. A vision without arms dies, a dream without output dies, ambition without proof dies. A message without distribution dies. For the modern man, your arms are skill, proof, systems, reputation, money reserves, and the ability to create measurable value. If you have a vision but no arms, the world has no reason to move. You say, "I want to succeed." So does everyone. You say, "I am ambitious." So is every beginner when the speech is fresh. You say, "I am hardworking." The market cannot inspect that statement. Show proof. This is why James Dyson matters. He did not ask the market to believe he was innovative. He built more than 5,000 prototypes across 5 years. He converted frustration into iteration. And when proof finally existed, the market had something to respond to. This is why the West Point example matters. Pressure revealed what talk could not reveal. Commitment had to survive discomfort. Not for one inspirational day, but under repeated strain. Proof is discipline made visible. And once you understand that, you stop begging to be believed. You start building evidence. The old belief is, "I am poor because no one sees my potential." Kill it. Replace it with, "I must become so disciplined that my proof makes doubt expensive." Because when your proof is weak, ignoring you costs nothing. When your proof is strong, ignoring you becomes dangerous. But proof alone is still not enough. A skilled man can still be underpaid. A talented man can still be used. A hard-working man can still remain trapped if his value has no leverage. So the next law is colder. Money follows leverage, not pain. The world does not pay you for suffering. It pays you for solving problems, controlling resources, building systems, and producing measurable value. This is where many men become bitter. They say, "I have been through so much." True. But the market does not reward suffering by itself. Pain can sharpen you. Pain can harden you. Pain can give you urgency. Pain can force you to stop living like a child. But pain is not an invoice. The buyer does not pay because you were abandoned. He pays because you solve something painful for him. The employer does not pay because you are tired of being overlooked. He pays because you reduce risk, increase value, save time, create output, or solve a problem. The audience does not follow because your life was unfair. They follow because your voice gives them clarity, identity, truth, or transformation. Pain becomes power only when it is converted. Unconverted pain becomes bitterness. Converted pain becomes leverage. Machiavelli writes in The Prince, "It is necessary to be a fox to discover the snares and a lion to terrify the wolves." The fox sees traps. The lion has force. A man who only suffers is neither fox nor lion. He is wounded. And wounds do not create position unless they are turned into perception, skill, structure, and force. To build leverage, you need both. Fox, you see what the market values. Lion, you build the capacity to deliver it. Fox, you understand incentives. Lion, you produce proof. Fox, you spot expensive problems. Lion, you solve them. Fox, you understand attention, trust, reputation, and timing. Lion, you execute long enough to become undeniable. Money follows leverage because leverage changes your position. It gives you advantage. It gives you alternatives. It reduces your dependence. It makes you harder to replace. A rare skill creates leverage. A strong reputation creates leverage. A body of proof creates leverage. An audience creates leverage. A system creates leverage. A network built on value creates leverage. A reserve of money creates leverage. An offer tied to urgent pain creates leverage. Without leverage, you are begging the market to care. With leverage, you give the market a reason to move. This is also where Machiavelli's most famous idea enters, and it is often misunderstood. He says, "It is much safer to be feared than loved, when, of the two, either must be dispensed with." Do not turn this into childish cruelty. He is not telling you to terrorize people. He is describing reliability. Love depends on goodwill, mood, emotion, and convenience. Fear, in political terms, depends on consequences and power. The modern application is simple. Do not build your economic life on being liked. Being liked is pleasant, but it is weak as a foundation. People can like you and still underpay you. They can like you and still ignore your offer. They can like you and still choose someone with clearer proof, stronger leverage, and better positioning. Build your life on being useful, difficult to replace, and visibly valuable. If people only like you, they may still price you low. If they need your skill, trust your proof, and respect your standards, your position changes. That is leverage. The world does not pay for your wound. It pays for the leverage your wound forced you to build. And if this offends you, examine why. Maybe a part of you still wants pain to excuse the absence of proof. Maybe a part of you still wants suffering to be treated as currency. Maybe a part of you wants the world to become parental, to finally see you, rescue you, and reward you for surviving. That world does not exist. And if it did, it would make you weaker. If you are a man who is ready to stop being paid emotionally by your own excuses, stop mistaking awareness for transformation. You already know pain is not enough, but your real problem is that you have not converted it into a system. If you keep collecting harsh truths without building leverage, you will become addicted to clarity while your position stays the same. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered studies on discipline, proof, leverage, reputation, and power, so you can stop consuming the philosophy and start operating by it. This is not for spectators. It is for men who want the private structure behind public dominance. The decision is yours. Now comes the enemy most men defend because it feels harmless. Cheap dopamine. Scrolling gives stimulation without achievement. Entertainment gives escape without progress. Pornography gives fantasy without intimacy. Venting gives relief without resolution. Arguing gives intensity without power. Buying gives the feeling of status without structure. Posting hints gives attention without proof. This is the cheap dopamine economy. It does not destroy a man all at once. That would be too honest. It keeps him emotionally paid while his rank stays the same. That is the danger. A man scrolls and feels informed, He watches and feels inspired. He vents and feels relieved. He argues and feels powerful. He buys and feels elevated. He posts and feels seen. But nothing has moved. No proof was built. No skill was sharpened. No offer was improved. No body was trained. No money was captured. No system was created. No system was created. No leverage was gained. Only the feeling changed. And a man who keeps accepting feelings as payment will remain poor in position even if he is rich in opinions. Machiavelli writes in Discourses on Livy, "Because as good customs stand in need of good laws for their support, so laws, that they may be respected, stand in need of good customs." Your rules need supporting habits. A man can declare a standard, but if his daily customs reward weakness, the standard dies. You say, "I will build," but your custom is scrolling when pressure rises. You say, "I will become disciplined," but your custom is negotiating every morning. You say, "I will create proof," but your custom is consuming more content when you feel uncertain. You say, "I will stop seeking validation," but your custom is explaining your mission to people who already decided not to understand. Your laws have no force because your customs are corrupt. Machiavelli understood corruption politically. Where customs decay, laws alone cannot save the state. The same is true for the man. One rule cannot save your future if your whole environment trains you to break it. So change the customs. No phone in the first hour. Deep work before consumption. Output before opinion. Training before comfort. Night review before sleep. Proof before talking. Silence before reaction. Money allocation before spending. The cheap dopamine economy must be treated like an enemy state. Not because pleasure is evil. Machiavelli was not a monk. Pleasure has its place. Rest has its place. Enjoyment has its place. But ungoverned pleasure weakens command. And anything that gives relief without increasing power becomes a tax on your future. That is why the real enemy is not poverty alone, not the market alone, not your family's doubt, not society's indifference. The enemy is your negotiation with weakness. This is the final term. The man who keeps negotiating with weakness keeps renewing his contract with a lower life. He says, "Just one more hour of scrolling." He says, "Just one more week before I start." He says, "Just one more conversation explaining myself." He says, "Just one more purchase to feel better." He says, "Just one more night wasted." He says, "Just one more day without output." He says, "Just one more day without output." He says, "Just one more excuse." And each negotiation looks small, but together they form a government of weakness. Machiavelli writes in Discourses that necessity is the parent of valor. Men become fierce when easy escape disappears. But the weak man waits for life to create necessity by destroying his options. He waits until the debt is too heavy. He waits until the relationship collapses. He waits until his body fails. He waits until time humiliates him. He waits until the world corners him. Do not wait for destruction to make you serious. Create chosen necessity. Make the standard non-negotiable. Make the work scheduled. Make the phone inaccessible. Make the proof public. Make the skill daily. Make the environment harder to betray. Make the old life less convenient. This is not optimism. This is strategy. Machiavelli does not trust men to behave well because they intend well. He trusts laws, necessity, arms, reputation, fear, and structure. So build structure around yourself. If your attention is weak, create barriers. If your schedule is weak, create fixed blocks. If your emotions are weak, delay reactions. If your standards are weak, write them and review them nightly. If your proof is weak, publish output. If your money is weak, capture the first portion before consumption. If your body is weak, train it. Not because the body alone makes you rich, because a man who cannot endure discomfort will eventually sell his future for relief. Stop negotiating with the part of you that benefits from your poverty. Now gather the doctrine. Machiavelli does not ask whether your intentions are pure. He asks whether your position is strong. He does not ask whether life is fair. He asks whether you understand fortune. He does not ask whether men should reward merit. He asks whether men actually reward visible power, useful force, and reputation. He does not ask whether you deserve support. He asks whether you have arms. He does not ask whether you feel motivated. He asks whether your laws and customs can survive pressure. This is Machiavellian discipline, not discipline for aesthetics, not discipline to look superior, discipline as a weapon against being priced low. If you control your attention, you become harder to distract. If you control your emotions, you become harder to manipulate. If you control your time, you become harder to waste. If you control your standards, you become harder to cheapen. If you build skill, you become harder to replace. If you build proof, you become harder to doubt. If you build leverage, you become harder to underpay. This is the chain. Attention becomes output. Output becomes proof. Proof becomes trust. Trust becomes leverage. Leverage becomes money. Money becomes options. Options become power. Power becomes freedom. But it begins where men least want to begin, with private discipline. Not applause, not belief, not motivation, not fairness. Private discipline. The world may not hate you, it may simply be pricing the evidence you have given it. That should disturb you. Good. A disturbed man who sees clearly can still become dangerous. A comforted man remains asleep. Kill the old belief that says, I am poor because no one sees my potential. Replace it with, I must become so disciplined that my proof, skill, and leverage force a new price. Kill the old belief that says, I need support first. Replace it with, I need command first. Kill the old belief that says, I need motivation. Replace it with, I need laws and customs that survive without motivation. Kill the old belief that says, my pain should be rewarded. Replace it with, my pain must be converted into value. Discipline. Not because discipline is romantic, because without it, every other advantage leaks. Once you understand how the world prices weakness, you can no longer pretend discipline is optional.